Okay, Trustee Hoffman, they're slowly starting to come in the room. We're at 20 so far. They're coming in slowly.
Okay, and can you just make sure before we get started that Trustee Fong is in the room?
Yes, I'll look for him right now. Okay, in the room now.
Great.
It looks like everyone's in now too.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to get started. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here on a Saturday morning. The meeting will come to order. Lupe, may I have roll call, please?
Student Trustee Geronimo, is it?
I'm here.
Thank you. Trustee
Welcome.
Wilma?
Here.
Trustee Fong?
Here.
Trustee Henderson?
Here.
Trustee Hoffman?
Here.
Trustee Moreno?
Here.
Trustee Vela?
Here.
Trustee Vettis?
Here.
Great. Thank you. Chancellor, would you be kind enough to lead us in the flag salute this morning?
Yes, I'm very happy to do so. Everybody, please place your hand over your heart, please. Right hand. And let's begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God,
one nation under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Chancellor. Before we move to the approval of the order of business for today, Chancellor, are there any changes to the agenda?
I would simply, no changes to the agenda other than the fact that we will be engaged in this first part of the agenda related to the board goal retreat for the first 3 hours or so. So we will just wanted to let our guests who are joining us that we will take other matters on the public agenda later in the day. And I know you'll make some comments to that effect, but just to note that, but the order is correct.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the order of business, please?
Trustee Hoffman?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm bringing this up only because I want to make sure that the decisions today have full standing. Do we need, has a swearing in occurred, or is a swearing in occurred before decisions in participation can occur?
Yes, absolutely. The Chancellor swore in all of the newly elected and re-elected board members this morning at 8:45 a.m.
Okay. That we should all know that, just to make sure that we don't want anyone nullifying any decisions after.
Thank you. All right. Can I have?
By the way, welcome, Trustee Henderson.
I'll do that. Can I have a motion and a second, please?
Motion.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Roll call, Lupe.
Student Trustee Geronimo's advisory vote?
Yes.
Trustee Buelna?
Yes.
Trustee Fong?
Yes.
Trustee Henderson?
Yes.
Trustee Hoffman?
Yes.
Trustee Moreno?
Yes.
Trustee Vela?
Yes.
Trustee Vettis?
Yes.
Great. So welcome, everybody. It's exciting to be here today, and I want to thank you again for being here on a Saturday morning to review the board's annual leadership and planning goals and the progress that we've made toward our goals for 2020 for the board and the district, and to begin our planning session for next year, 2021. I do want to make an announcement. We have a very packed day today. So the beginning of our day is our annual planning session, and we've scheduled time from 9 a.m. to noon to have our planning session. We're going to take a break from 12 to 12:30. At 12:30, we have on the agenda items E1 and E2, talking about public safety. And then in the afternoon, we're going to go into closed session. what I'd like to do is, I know I have about 11 or 12 people that have signed up to make public comment on items E1 and E2. Because the morning has been set aside for our, essentially what we call a board retreat, what I'd like to do is ask any speakers who have come to make public comment to please come back at 12:30 so that we could fully hear you and spend the time that we need taking public comment before the item. So I'd like to just make that announcement right now. Lupe, is there anybody else who signed up to address the board on our goals or our planning session?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and is there anybody else who signed up to address the board on any other item before us today, other
No,
than
ma'am.
E1 and E2?
No.
Okay, so what I'd like to do then is go into our annual board leadership and planning session.
Ms.
You're
Hoffman?
all welcome to stay for the meeting. This is a public session. I also want to welcome, and I know Trustee Buelna, you tried to do it when we were trying to approve the order of business. I want to welcome our newest board member, Ms. Nichelle Henderson. We're just so excited to have you here with us. Welcome to the LACCD Board of Trustees. So big round of applause for Nichelle.
Welcome.
Do you want
Thank
to
you.
do you want to just say a couple words before we get started, Nichelle?
Thank you so much. The last couple of weeks, the onboarding and preparation for my work here on the board has been very smooth. I want to thank Chancellor Rodriguez and, of course, my board peers for your welcoming and your kindness. And thank you so much. I am very excited about getting to work. It just kind of hit me this morning, just before the swearing in. And I'm ready to get started. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Nichelle. Very happy to have you here. Great. So, pardon me?
Thank you, Sue, so much.
Okay. So we are going to get started with our annual board retreat. Very excited to have Noah Brown here today to help facilitate our board leadership and planning session. It was, I think, a little over a year ago when we met at the Family Resource Center at LA Valley College to develop our goals. Nobody could have predicted at that time that we'd be hit with a global pandemic. So in the light of COVID-19, we've actually added an extra goal in how the district, the board, and the chancellor have responded to COVID-19 and the pandemic in the middle of all of this. So I want to, first of all, thank you, Chancellor, for your hard work and for responding by putting together this, hopefully you've all received it, this great outline with all of the board goals and the strategic priorities. Again, we started with 3 strategic priorities. We've added an extra one to address the issues around COVID-19. What I'd like to do is let Noah go through his presentation, and then we can have discussion and questions by board members. So Noah, do you want to take it away?
Thank you, President Hoffman. First, I also want to offer my congratulations to the newly re-elected board members, and I especially want to congratulate you, Trustee Henderson, on joining this board. I want you to know that your national organization, ACCT, is eager to get to know you and work with you. And certainly if there's anything I or my team in Washington, D.C. can do to help you settle in, all you need to do is reach out. So we're very excited. And I hope I have the opportunity to meet you in person sometime in the future. So really for your benefit more than anyone else, Trustee Henderson, let me just briefly describe the process and where we are as of today. So I was brought in to work with the board, I think it's almost 2 years ago now. And we worked very hard trying to organize a rubric, if you like, for the board to organize their goals and objectives, and then to cross-reference those goals and objectives with the work of the chancellor in the district. The I being that we would develop a grid that the board could use relatively easily to monitor not only its goals, but those goals that the chancellor is charged to execute, and to track that progress, and then to be able to benchmark where the district is on those goals and objectives. So as President Hoffman noted, I was with you, I think, last fall at the center, which was very interesting, and I was happy to have that opportunity and to hear a presentation about that center and the work that it does. And we worked to create an organizational structure, and that's what you see before you in terms of these three broad goals. What we tried to do was give some overarching context to the multiplicity of goals and tried to simplify how they might be viewed in terms of advancing the work of the district on behalf of students and citizens of Los Angeles. And then, as Trustee Hoffman noted, the last time I was with the board, I think President Hoffman was in January. I think it was January 22nd. I had to go back and remember that. And we started to kind of review those goals and have a conversation. And then obviously about 2.5 months later, we were hit with the pandemic, which I know forced a lot of changes, not only in LA and the district, but frankly affected ACCT as well. Our offices have been closed since mid-March. And I can't tell you honestly when we're going to reopen our offices at this point. So like you, we had to transition to online. And we've learned a lot. But it also, in talking with President Hoffman and Chancellor Rodriguez, we realized that whatever goals the board had set and whatever understandings there were in terms of how we would work through those goals, the pandemic became really the primary focus of a lot of the activity in the district. And none of that was planned, obviously. And so what the chancellor did with his team was to create essentially a fourth bucket of goals and priorities specifically related to COVID-19. Because obviously the pandemic required a number of changes and a number of adaptations with existing goals. Obviously, some things took more priority and certainly affected the three broader goals. So you can see the chart as you have it as of today. I want to thank Chancellor Rodriguez and his team for working to fill this out for this meeting, and particularly to add the columns about status of the various goals and activities. That's very important. The board needs to be able to monitor very clearly where the work is and what's proceeding. I will say that, again, for Trustee Henderson's benefit, I know this is probably very overwhelming, but don't worry, it'll get easier and simpler as you work on this board. The importance of this grid and this progress in this framework is because this is what lends itself to a very straightforward and simple process for the board to evaluate its own performance. How well is the board working in setting goals and monitoring goals? And then, of course, equally important and related is the board's evaluation of the chancellor based on the performance and implementation on the goal. So that's why you see the chart. You know, there's the left-hand side, which is the board's work, and the right-hand side, which is the chancellor and the administration's work. So just so you understand how this all fits together. Now, I don't want to consume a lot of time because we've been through this a few times already. I know the chancellor has prepared quite extensive amount of material. And I believe, Chancellor, that what you'd like to do now for a period of time on the agenda is actually help the board understand where things stand with board goals and the activities that you've been responsible for in executing those goals throughout the district, with obviously special emphasis on all the adjustments that had to be made in the wake of the pandemic. So at this point, with your permission, President Hoffman, I will turn this back to you. And I think the Chancellor wants to go through the 52 pages or whatever it was that you all received. And by the way, 52 pages, don't feel bad. When we have a board meeting at ACCT, we have a book of about 350 some pages. So not too bad. 52 pages is a pretty good deal, I think.
Thank you, Noah. And at some point after the Chancellor makes his presentation, if you can comment on what's happening in the national, arena in terms of enrollment and other challenges that community colleges across the nation are facing, I think that would kind of shed some light on what we're doing in LA. So thank you, Chancellor.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam President, would you like to have that comment now? I might contextualize the discussion a little bit, or I can go through my presentation. Do you have a preference?
I'm sure if you feel it's helpful to have it now, that would be great. If you want to just,
I think so.
I didn't want to.
If you could just get a sense, because it'll put into context of the work that LACCD is engaged in. It's the selection of its strategic priorities, and give us a sense, because we've all been essentially safer at home. We've stayed at home. We've Zoomed continuously for going on 10 months now. So that would be helpful to get a sense of what the national landscape looks like, just some broad strokes. And then I'm happy to dive into the report, because diving into the report is going to take a few minutes.
Thank you. Noah, go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, so let me start at the 64,000 foot level and start with enrollment, because I know that's something that all of you on the board, certainly the Chancellor, the administration, the faculty, everybody are very concerned about. According to the latest research that we have seen, and I checked these numbers actually this morning. I had the luxury of being on the East Coast to get up a little earlier than most of you, so I checked all these numbers thoroughly. In terms of community college enrollment nationally, across the board, we're down by about 10%. Now, that varies tremendously depending on the college, the state, the district. I've seen everything from some colleges actually recording modest gains, which we're seeking to understand, by the way. We haven't quite satisfied ourselves into why they saw a slight uptick. But generally, most colleges are down. The average, as I said, 10%. But I can tell you that I am familiar with some colleges that have seen their enrollments go down as much as 45%, which is devastating. Within that general downturn, there are a number of very concerning and disturbing trends. First of all, according to the National Clearinghouse, if you look at enrollment of first-time freshmen in community colleges, we've actually seen that population decline by over 19%. So while overall enrollment's down 10, the enrollment of first-time freshmen is down almost 20%. And then within that population, we're seeing the biggest losses in enrollment. It's very much concentrated in the Native American population, the African American population, and of course the Hispanic population, which is raising all sorts of flags for us here in Washington and for our sector generally. We are seeing the enrollment decline primarily because of pandemic and the economic downturn, disproportionately affecting low-income, disadvantaged, and students of color, including primarily men and men of color, which means that a lot of the progress we've made nationally on moving those numbers up and moving the needle are probably going to slide backwards. And because of the pandemic and the economic impact and the trends in state and local funding for community colleges, we're not going to be able to turn those trends around overnight. So that's some contextual information for you here in the district as you look at your numbers and you think about this. In terms of other issues, everything that you're experiencing, I can guarantee you that every other community college is experiencing. The transition to online learning, all the problems associated with that, including faculty preparation, student preparation. Did students have the equipment they needed? Did they have access to broadband, Wi-Fi hotspots, all of that? Obviously, the challenges of ensuring health and safety, first and foremost for students, but also for faculty, administrators, and frankly, the board. A lot of the boards with whom I'm familiar have been meeting electronically as you have for months and months and months. And interestingly, we are seeing a lot of creativity and ingenuity in terms of how boards do their business and how they can streamline their agenda and get things done more quickly. Same thing is true with all the organizations of which you are a part, whether it's ACCT or AACC or others. We've all had to adopt just as you have. So that's some general context. I could give you a lot more, but I don't want to take time away from the Chancellor and all the material that he has prepared for you.
Thank you, Noah. Chancellor.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and begin. Thank you, Dr. Brown, for that overview. It is very helpful, and of course, would welcome your comments when the board engages in its conversation. What I'll do today is I'll give an overview of how the materials are organized, and then I'll get into the materials in some level of detail. We'll go over each strategic priority, 1 through 4. And then depending what time it is, Madam Chair, we might want to take a short break and then come back and have a full board discussion on the strategic priorities, questions. We can delve into as much detail as you'd like. I'd also like to mention that as a result of the discussion today, the board goals document will be further refined and further updated, if you will, emphasize in areas that you'd like to see more emphasis, maybe de-emphasize in some areas, however you'd like to see that. But it is essentially the penultimate draft, and it'll be finalized after your discussions today. This was our interpretation of the goals, the materials that were most salient towards the meeting of the goals. And if there's additional information that you would like, we're happy to do that. So know that this is a document that can be further refined, further amplified with additional evidence, however you'd like. So if I could have Crystal start the show, page 1, please, and then I'll go over a couple of opening comments here. Okay, so first, in looking at the board document, it really is in 3 sections. The first section is what I would describe as the 1-page departmental briefs. And that is, and we'll go over them in just a moment, the departmental mission, what we have viewed as the accomplishments for that unit, the key functions of what that unit is involved with, and then just a little bit of conjecture of looking ahead to 2021. So we'll go over that in just a moment. And the next chunk, which is a large part of the board goals, is the board goals matrix. The board has seen this before. It's been further refined with the help of Dr. Brown and his team and our team, sort of massaging how we would put together a template of sorts, a template that would indeed speak to the interest issues of the board, our rationale for that particular goal area, and then the evidence that we have provided in that area, and then whether or not the goal has been completed, whether it is in progress or not completed. So that is essentially the pages that talks about the strategic priorities. And then you'll notice that on that section 2 of the board goals matrix, there's a series of documents that are highlighted, that are hyperlinked So if you click on them, it goes straight to another tranche of materials, further evidence, further material to get down into information that you might like to see. And then the third section is the appendix of the supporting material. That's the reference documents that we refer to in Area 2 and so forth. So it is actually about 100 pages, 101 pages to be exact, if you count all the other documents that are in there. So let's go ahead and begin. The next page. Okay, so I'm going to go over now the one-page departmental briefs. So this is our business services department. You can see their key functions are to negotiate and execute district-wide contracts, leases, and other important types of agreements. They're the unit that commands the purchasing of goods and services for the district. You see this as a major component of every board meeting. It is headed by Valencia Moffitt. Some of the key accomplishments you could see is providing, and I would just highlight this one. They've done an absolute fabulous job in ensuring that we can have services, goods, support during this COVID-19 pandemic period. They completely, as it says, they're pivoted their services and their unit with tremendous, excellent support so that we could have all the purchases, the licenses, the software, and the goods and services that we needed to keep our institution afloat, not just before, but during and clearly after the pandemic as well. So that's a little bit about our business services unit headed by, again, Miss Moffitt. And you can see there, as they look ahead, there's a few things that they'd like to embark on, and taking a closer look at their unit, making sure that they are more efficient, and assessing a continuous sort of quality improvement assessment. So next one, please. This one is the Office of the Chief Financial Officer. This is headed by Ms. Jeanette Gordon. Ms. Gordon also serves as the liaison to the Budget and Finance Committee, which is chaired by Board President Hoffman. And you can see there a significant amount of functions and duties and responsibilities that this office has. Essentially, it is responsible for all financial operations of the district. And that includes, as you can see, their cash management, investment management, capital financing, of fixed assets of the district. They also engage in a significant amount of budget and management analysis. That is, that our support to the colleges and to our units so that they can maintain fiscal health throughout the year. What's also a significant part of this office is the responsibility for the Central Financial Aid Office. We have hundreds of millions of dollars in federal and state financial aid that we dispense, and this is the operations that helps us. And they're also responsible for a key function known as payroll for our almost 10,000 full and part-time employees for the district. We have a payroll of just under $50 million a month. You kind of get a sense of the tremendous amount of work that is done through Ms. Gordon and her team there. As they look ahead, they clearly want to make some important analysis again, so they can be more efficient in their unit. But I would say that this is going to be the lead unit for all of our FEMA reimbursables. And we're well over $20 million in FEMA expenses so far this academic year. So this is going to be a clear unit that will be directing and driving whatever FEMA reimbursements this district can get. Next, please. Our communications office is run by Mr. William Boyer. And this obviously is a key office that handles the messaging, the outreach to our public, to our multiple constituencies, to the news media, and to other internal and external stakeholders. And you could see just a tremendous amount of work that's been done this academic year. This is the unit that is responsible for putting together the Chancellor's monthly report and those other reports that are posted monthly as part of my presentations to you, the board. We have framed a significant amount of messages around student success and equity, most notably pushing out the framework for racial equity and social justice that the board has approved, our newly formed Chancellor's Advisory Committee for Black African American Student Affairs, our work with the LGBTQIA+ community, and our sponsorship of the annual Disability Summit. So if you click on those hyperlinks there, you'll get a lot more detail in each of those particular areas. But also, we also are interested in pushing out information of general import to our campus community about our stand in solidarity with our Armenian brothers and sisters, for example, our support for undocumented and DACA students, pushing the student vote out and pushing messages out about student success and keeping students engaged moving forward. They're the unit that's responsible for also putting together the welcome kit for our LA College Promise students. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, but we do have a digital welcome kit that was sent to all LAUSD students and other students throughout our district, so they can get a sense of how easy it is to apply for and to enroll in our tuition-free education model and in all the supports related to the College Promise program. And you can see a whole series of special events, from the Culinary Cup to groundbreakings to the Student Week of Action to the Dodger Day event that took place last year. So significant unit and clearly supports the board's messages as well when we're interfacing with the media and the public. Next, please. IPIE office. This is run by Dr. Ryan Corner. Dr. Corner is the liaison to the IESS committee. The IESS committee is chaired by Mr. Fong, and you can see the key functions related to attendance accounting, student support, research, and educational programs. Dr. Corner is essentially the provost, or the chief academic officer and chief student service officer of the district. And in doing so, you can see all the functions, responsibilities that he and his office and his team has. A critical office, super functions, and you can see some of the key accomplishments related to our dual enrollment, or what we call CCAP agreements, the increase in our LA College Promise students. And you'll see later in the data, you may have clicked on already, our LA College Promise students are outperforming our students that are not in the program. We are increasing and launched a new enrollment management process so that we can be well positioned for the student success, the funding formula, funding models. We have drawn new articulation agreements with Arizona State University, and we're working on one now with the Whittier College. We partnered with the USC Race and Equity Center to launch a district-wide professional development here. And you can see just a whole number of other initiatives that the district is engaged with. Our Creative Cafe tutoring services, our Fresh Collar, our Guided Pathways movement, all those are indeed parts and responsibilities of this unit. They do an excellent job. And then also the unit that creates the dashboards for student success. As they look ahead to the following year, they're going to be a lead unit on how we phase back in a post-COVID environment. That is, how we bring our courses, our face-to-face courses, our student services activities, our operations back to the campus in consultation and with support of our district EOC. So that is the EPIE or EPI office. Next, please. Our Emergency Operations Center started in March of 2020 as a response to the COVID-19 public health emergency and indeed the pandemic. This EOC works in direct support of the campus-specific incident command centers at each of the colleges. As we began our work since March, we've had a seat at the table at both statewide, county, and city planning policy making bodies related to COVID. I've sat in each of those groups and been part of the writing of recommendations from those groups and chaired the group for the City of Los Angeles Higher Education Working Group. Those are documents that are available. And again, so it's important because it shows and demonstrates that we're working in sync with our county and city municipal partners, and that we're working in sync with the close to 80 institutions of higher education in Los Angeles County, so that we're not out of step, but we're actually leading and in step with the work that's going on to keep our faculty, staff, and students safe, and also the recovery plans of moving in to that. And speaking of recovery plans, the EOC is responsible for the recovery policies and the plans, the safety advisories, as you see there on the right-hand bottom side, documenting all the activities that are going on. We have purchased and distributed through the EOC more than 25,000 Chromebooks or Surface Go devices for students that do not have the materials, the technical materials or tools that they need to move forward. Our fiscal oversight and to our pandemic, if you will, and support the ordering of much of our PPE, our personal protective gear that include facial masks, coverings, all those sorts of things that are super important. And perhaps more important, we are tracking everything that we're doing in and through the EOC. We meet twice a week as a cabinet on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons with the entire cabinet of presidents, executive team, and others. And there is an EOC report that is provided that gives us the up-to-date information. And this is the unit that is the liaison to the LA County Public Health Department. So this is directed by Deputy Chancellor Melinda Nish. And there's been, as you can see there, over 240 people from our district and our colleges who have been involved with the EOC. And I appreciate the board last month in November recognizing so many of those who were part of the EOC. So next page, please. This is our facilities planning and development division that is headed by Dr. Ruben Smith. Dr. Smith is the liaison to the FEMPA committee, which is chaired by Mr. Vettis. And you can see very, very proud set of accomplishments this academic year, highlighted by the 2020 Clean Energy and Sustainability Resolution that really puts us on the map for not just community colleges, but for institutions of higher education that talks about our green energy, our sustainability, our lifting of the carbon footprint that we have, and engaging in the kinds of practices that are sustainable and that protect and support the environment. So a tremendous amount of work by Dr. Smith and his team. I want to also thank the Jacobs group and our partner in our facilities of development as we move forward. You've seen some of the accomplishments. We had a presentation on the School of Science and the nursing program at Southwest College. We're very, very pleased that we've started construction on the construction technology building at Trade Tech. You've seen we have some state approved funding projects. We have 5 of them for this fiscal year at East, LA Pierce, Trade, Valley, and West. And very, very pleased that in the last academic year, we approved with the board's support and approval a project labor agreement that lasts through 2030. Again, the first of its kind for a community college. And we're very proud of our labor partners, our building trades partners, and others in LA and Orange County who have helped us to get to this particular point. And we've always kept in mind internships. So we've had 20 students who have gone and worked with professionals in our district. And the board has set out a 30% goal for SLED, or small emerging disabled veteran firms, to do business with them. And we hit the goal of 42% this year. As we look ahead, the Culinary Arts Building will be finished next year. And finally, Da Vinci Hall at LA City College. I know we're looking forward to both those facilities and whatnot. And then we'll commence the design for the projects that you see there at East, Harbor, Valley, and at Pierce. Next, please. This is Office of the General Counsel, led by Mr. Jeff Prieto, and excellent unit, of course, as you know, and they're the unit that provides legal counsel for the entire district. They have done some wonderful work this academic year defending the district in all its litigation and matters. They engaged in an RFP process that has resulted in a more diverse group of legal firms that we can work with, experts in the Los Angeles area. They provide legal management to the bond program, which, as you know, in total is just under $10 billion. We shifted the responsibilities for that back to OGC, and they've done an excellent job. They supervise the lead construction council that is responsible for providing support and oversight and legal support to our bond program. And I'm very pleased that through their good work that we do have a bond-funded new Assistant General Counsel, Oscar Victoria, who provides excellent support to the wonderful, excellent professional team that Mr. Prieto leads there at OGC. And as I look ahead, they're simply going to continue to provide, as they do now, excellent support. So thank you, Mr. Prieto, to you and your team for good work this year. Next, please. Government, Legislative, and Community Relations is headed by Ms. Maria Veloz. And Ms. Veloz is the liaison to the Legislative and Public Affairs Committee, which is chaired by Mr. Vela. And you can see that the key functions are to provide tremendous federal liaison and interface with the federal government, local, state governments, national, state, and community college advocacy, and to work with multiple task forces, ad hoc committees, and special projects of the group. So the key functions are very beautifully detailed there. And we had a tremendous year in this particular area. If you look at the key accomplishments that occurred over the last year or so, you can see very clearly our advocacy for the CARES Act that resulted in the district receiving $45 million of CARES Act funding, half of which, and actually more than half, about 75% of which has gone to students, support for $255 million for HBCUs, HSIs, and minority serving institutions. We helped to secure through our federal advocacy efforts the Department of Labor grant of $12 million for scheduling apprenticeship to the West Los Angeles College, to West Los Angeles College. We've expanded outreach to SNAP eligibility for community college students, allocations for immigrant legal services of $10 million, $5.8 million for the Dream Resource Center, $9 million for community college rapid rehousing. So you can see, and of that fund, about 10% of that, a little less than 10, 700,000 of that rapid rehousing fund went to LA Southwest College. And this will be, I think, noted later in the report as well, but we've established tremendous partnerships for students who are homeless throughout the LA County office, where we have the Peer Navigator program, where we have liaisons paid for by LA County at our colleges that help support students who need emergency assistance, who need emergency housing, who need aid and support because they indeed are homeless, or other kinds of mental health services, as well as those MOUs and supports that the board recently approved earlier this fall with Shower Hope and the LA Room and Board, which houses between them 43 homeless students at zero cost to the district. And we appreciate the support from our district foundation, from the East LA College Foundation, that has helped to provide the room and board cost for some of these students. So a tremendous amount of work and accomplishments from the government, legislative, and community relations area. And as we look ahead and look towards a Biden administration, we're very hopeful, frankly. We're very hopeful that the Biden administration will be receptive to some of the issues, policies, interests that the LA Community College District has had and will continue to have moving forward. So those are some of the issues as you look ahead to that section there. But again, we're looking forward to doing everything we can to support COVID-19 stimulus funding, to continue to address student basic needs, housing, food care, childcare, technology, transportation, to reform financial aid so that it conforms more with working adult students, as well as how it always has with traditionally aged students, and support for other things like our LGBT community, our ethnic studies, and our Dream Resource Centers. So these are super important activities, a wonderful year. And on Monday, we will be launching, Monday, Tuesday, our inaugural LACCD advocacy brief, known as Education Matters. It's an e-newsletter for multiple constituents in the community. So wonderful year this year there. Next, please. Human Resources. Now, let me just pause here. Trustee Henderson, is this a good onboarding or what?
Yes, it is.
Welcome to our LAC City family. It's a lot of moving parts, but we do great work and good people, dedicated people. So I'm real proud to share just a real, brief snapshot of the work that they've done and will continue to do in areas that where you'll see where we need to improve. But looking at HR, they're clearly responsible for the key functions there of employee and labor relations, that is our interface with our employee groups, risk management. They govern our health benefits program, and of course, the operations, which deal with hiring, assignments, and all kinds of important activities are related to our personnel, who we hire, how we hire them, how we support them, and how we work with our labor groups, our 6 labor groups moving through. So it's clear key accomplishments for this year. This was a year in which we had to negotiate successor agreements with our groups, and I'm proud to say I believe we have 5 of the 6, with the 3 coming up or 2 coming up in this next week. So we're very, very close to getting all 6 completed in a timely basis. And of course, kudos to our negotiation teams at the district side, to the negotiation teams on the labor side. We do have collegial relationships, wonderful partnerships, and have a culture of trust and a culture of listening and a culture of working together to get to a contract agreement that is fair for all sides concerned. They do have a human resources strategic plan that they are looked at, that began with Dr. Roman as the Vice Chancellor, and they're seeing that plan through, which has allowed them to reshift some of the talent that they have in HR and to procure some new folks there. They are the agency that will be implementing the SERP, the Supplemental Retirement Program for the district. And as you see there, because of the reach and the key functions of their work, they're engaged in significant amount of professional development as outlined in number 7 there in the looking ahead. This is a tremendous amount of excellent work going on to provide talent acquisition and talent development for our organization. Next, please. This is the Office of Information Technology that is run by a Vice Chancellor and Chief Information Officer, Carmen Litz. Carmen Litz is also the liaison to the Innovation Technology and Sustainability Committee that is chaired by Dr. Bolna. And you can see that the key functions are pretty significant. As you can see in your screen there, they're always focusing on what's best for students by way of technology, providing modernization, stability, and security through their services, providing effective administrative operations through technology, innovation, technology support, and whatnot. So that gives you a general view of what the division is about. And you can see that they've been absolutely instrumental and key in our COVID-19 response by equipping students, faculty, and staff with the tools and technology and connectivity that they need, by supporting those faculty members and students and others to ensure that the connectivity and whatever they click on actually works and can support the success of students and the teaching of our faculty. And they have both cloud-based and upstream enabled solutions that they have moved forth with. And perhaps most importantly, they have continued to strengthen the infrastructure of our technology backbone, if you will, that allows us to carry out our operations, allows us to be resilient, backup storage for our critical systems, and of course, our security and cybersecurity infrastructure that remains super important during this time. So that's a little bit about our Office of Information Technology, who does an excellent job here at the district. Next. Our Office of Institutional Advancement. This is the office that is essentially, and this is the last page for departmental updates. This essentially is our key office for the district. We have 11 foundations throughout. We include this one throughout the district. And they're responsible for major gifts and partnerships and planned giving and the stewardship and annual funds for LACCD. The Office of Institutional Investment is run by Michael Fuller. And you can see there just on the graph there, we thought we would put it in pictorial form of the growth. When I got here in 2014, we were moribund. We weren't doing very much in the area of district-wide fundraising. But in 2017, you have a small corpus, and you can see now that it's over $2.7 million that were raised in this last year, really in much in response to our COVID, with a generous philanthropic support to our unit. And we just got news earlier this week, this will be more public, and I guess it's public now, I'm going to mention it, that we did receive a $1 million grant from the Foundation for California Community Colleges for emergency aid for our students. So it was a competitive grant, and Mr. Fuller and his team did an excellent job in responding to the needs. And this is impact at scale. And these will be for emergency aid for our students. And I was very, very pleased also, and this is not the district foundation, but very pleased that LA Trade Tech College was able to receive a $1 million grant from Bank of America over the last month, a couple of weeks. Also, ensuring that students and those who have been displaced, those who can get back to the workforce, and those who are with us in our schools at trade can be ready for the workforce in a COVID and post-COVID environment. So we are attracting resources, extramural resources that supplement and complement our institutional and federal funding. So you can see there, looking at their key accomplishments, gift cards, over 300,000 gift cards to over 6,000 students, emergency grants of just over $178,000 to students, laptops to students. Our nursing grant continues through the generous support of Vicki Chang. We have installed Next Gen, and you can see all the applications that we were received and those that were awarded and so forth. So again, as we look ahead to next year, we want to increase our capacity, make sure that BAR continues growing, and make sure that we can continue to have the kind of philanthropic private support that our students need to be successful. So Madam Chair, I've talked for about 30 minutes straight there, my apologies, but I wanted to stop there and perhaps just take a few moments before I get into the grid, the strategic priorities, 1 through 4, to see if members of the board had any reactions or just initial questions.
Thank you, Chancellor. That was excellent. I am going to call on board members to see if they have any questions. And I'd like to start with our student trustee, Geronimo. Do you have any questions on what was presented so far for the Chancellor?
No, Madam President. I think everything was clear from the Chancellor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Fong.
Thank you so much, Madam President, and thank you so much, Mr. Chancellor, for the robust presentation to you and your team. Just a quick question. I know you mentioned the Biden-Harris administration coming in, and a key area that the board and we're very focused on is job training programs, workforce development programs, career technical education programs. And as we come out of this COVID-induced recession, as we prepare to apply for these grants from the Department of Labor, from the Department of Education, just wanted to put out there for the colleges and for all our administration and our teams that as we came out of the recession of 2008, 2009, and as we come out of this recession, I believe that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for workforce training grants and hospitality and culinary and upskilling. Biden administration has also put out a robust agenda on green jobs and clean energy. So I think that relates to a lot of the work that we have put around the recent resolution with Board President Hoffman, Vice President Bettis, and the board on getting the sustainability resolution going. So my question is, how are we preparing as a district to apply for these grants and to be ready for these opportunities, to put together the partnerships with the County Federation of Labor, LA Economic Development Corporation, and all our regional partners, and as your leadership as chair of the LA Orange County Regional Consortium Council with Strong Workforce Fund. So I just really wanted, if we can touch upon that really quick. Thank you so much, Madam President.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Fong. Your observation, I believe, is both accurate and it's an optimistic observation about what might open up through the Department of Labor, Department of Transportation, and how our academic programs that put people to work in livable wage jobs and above will allow them to move forward. So I think that we are beautifully prepared for that. So we will be positioned. We have, as you know, very strong federal advocacy work in Washington, D.C. We will continue to have that presence. In the month of February, the board and I and Ms. Veloz and other key individuals will visit virtually Washington, D.C. to begin our asks to make the rounds with those key departments and key appointments so we can see where there might be some opportunities. So we are very well positioned, and we'll get whatever technical support we need to actually write and send those kinds of environments in. So those are areas that indeed we can work with, and I think we're very well positioned for that moving forward. So yeah, and through the strong workforce programs, as you know, we have our deans, presidents working with those kinds of CTE workforce programs that really meet the needs of regional employers. So we have a strong running start as we've had through the investments of strong workforce and what we believe will be a receptive environment through the federal government with the new administration.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chancellor, and thank you so much, Madam President.
Thank you. Trustee Moreno?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Trustee Henderson, I'm going in alphabetical order here.
No questions. Thank you, Chancellor. That was a very detailed report. I appreciate that.
Trustee Vella?
Thank you, President Hoffman. Also, great summary. I did want to just kind of add into the conversation when it comes to, us looking at, what the Chancellor likes to call the SLED in the procurement and build program. We really have to be aware that our procurement activities are very vast, both on the district side and on the build side. Our build side, as the Chancellor mentioned, is close to a $10 billion program throughout the years. And then you see the district also engaging in large amounts of dollars. And so because of the pandemic, I think we really need to emphasize the ability to and we have a 42% adherence, which is fantastic. And that's thanks to this administration and thanks to all the trustees. And we could do better. We could be at 50%. We could go higher. The pandemic is really something that I believe we can add as one of the major players in LA County. You have Metro and the airport with similar dollar amounts on their build program. What this does is it releases just a vast amount of local jobs to our people, to our students, and it really actually coincides with the Chancellor's report on workforce. And, Trustee Fong has also been leading the fight in IESS. So, I think we really need to start thinking about how we help African-American businesses, LGBT, and the like. And I think we're heading in the right direction. So I'm really excited about that. I know the Chancellor has actually been working on this, and so it doesn't fall on deaf ears. And then on the IT side, on getting our students connected to the internet, our committee at the Legislative and Public Affairs has been pushing legislation to better connect our students, but we need to do more there too. I think that the district has the ability to look at this from a perspective as being one of the largest community college districts, or the largest in the United States, how we push, not only legislation, but the utilities community and businesses to be able to provide that for our students. There shouldn't be a reason why corporate America shouldn't step in as well. Many of our students are making these telecommunications companies wealthy. their mobile subscriptions and so on and so forth. So, but we're heading down that way, and I actually just wanted to commend staff that's listening today, that's here with us, on how much we moved down that road to do both of those things that I mentioned. And I don't know, Chancellor, if you want to, just add a little bit more about what we're doing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vela. Happy to. In fact, there's a whole section in the next part of the report that I'll pause and give a lot more detail. But thank you for your leadership of what we call the LEDGE committee. As you know, you set out a very aggressive agenda, and one for local relationship building, statewide support, and for federal advocacy. And we have followed that charge, both through sponsoring legislation, as well as to make budgetary asks and requests and influence. And you've seen some of the numbers in the previous report that has done that. And then now positioning ourselves, we think in the next 4, maybe 8 years, for federal support from some key departments, as I mentioned, with labor, transportation, Department of Ed, and others. All of our colleges are Hispanic serving institutions, and we want to get the kind of support we need to make them all Hispanic graduating institutions, if you want to use that paraphrase, because we could stand to, as well as our graduation of our other groups as well. But there are federally designated funds for minority serving institutions, quote unquote, which we are all 9. So we need to take advantage of that. And Mr. Vela, we're well positioned. You put us there, and we're going to be very aggressive. That's the pace that we've been working with our local, state, and federal advocates, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you, Chancellor.
Mm-hmm.
Trustee Veras? Vice President Veras, do you have a question or comment?
I do a couple. I'm sorry, I'm going through the presentation again here. So Chancellor, a couple of things, and I guess I'll reflect Trustees Vela's comment on the procurement side, and I know we've got a few things scheduled to come, but I just want to reflect it from the side of consistency, because it does feel like one side of the house in facilities and planning, the sort of procurement nature there is as presented to us at the board level, as presented to our committees, has clear laid out goals, is able to demonstrate process pretty consistently. And on the district side, there's not as much consistency, sometimes continue re-procurements. I know we've had issues through the years of trying to get this, but I think that to search for a goal of consistency when you do business with LECCD, whether it's in facilities or whether it's in business services, there should be some common thread and consistency. And I think that's, or even dealing with at the campus level, to be able to have a standard understanding of approach and expectation. So, and I'm not sure how that lays out, because you certainly have it housed under one area, but just to be able to sort of have, and the words eluding me right now, but institutional expectation, common expectation.
Yeah.
So, and it's not laid out there, but it's in bits and pieces about improving the areas, but I sort of want to elevate it to having a common experience and having a reasonable pathway for the experience that's there. Secondly, I think, and I do appreciate sort of how the key accomplishments are laid out and the looking ahead piece. But in this presentation, and maybe this needs to be sort of part of our regular update, is really to understand what key performance indicators could be and should be for all these areas. To know that, like I'll use the sort of facilities space since I've spent a long time on that committee. We can assess how some years, the volume of construction was lower, and that's been ramped up and qualified in lots of different kinds of ways. In General Counsel's office, tracking the amount of litigations that are out there and the cost, but be able to dig deeper. We see it in bits and pieces in enrollment. We see it in bits and pieces of financial aid. But I think every unit and every sort of grouping of goals, has an opportunity to sort of measure key performance activities over whether it's monthly or bi-monthly or biannually or something like that, depending on sort of the situation and structure. But as laid out here, we have long list of accomplishments and goals, which are very important and good, sort of look forwards. But I like this concept of benchmark. And I like this concept of how we're improving and how we're growing and how we're, moving forward and how we're measuring against, and a lot of this is measuring against ourselves and measuring against the region, which also provides options for students, and the fact that students are not, tied to us. They have to evaluate and see that either one, we're improving, or we have certain areas that we're better than others at. And if there are areas where we're deficient, certainly becomes an opportunity to target. The last comment, and I know this has been an initiative that we started, and I think we've made some good progress. But to sort of take it from an initiative to make it be a way of business is, the concept of equity and sort of this justice piece. And I use that to say that, for example, like, let's use the academic standpoint. The fact that students that there are student groups that perform better year one to year two, and we can almost use the data that's there to demonstrate that. But how do we, and whether it's having equity in all our key sort of divisions, or really looking at deeply in a few areas with students or human resources, but just to see that it has a permanent home as opposed to sort of an initiative that's created in response, that this just becomes normalized approaches to the district and the way that we sort of see ourselves and see those goals being interconnected and interlaced with all of our traditional sort of structures. So some are questions, comments, more along the lines of comments, but just wanted to offer those in the context here.
Thank you, Mr. Vettis. On the three, we can stand to be more consistent on the LACCD sort of non-facility side of the house in our efforts to attract more SLED groups. We've done that inconsistently. That's a fair comment, and we will look at to do that in a way, for example, like we did with the legal services bench, where we actively recruited a more diverse legal services, but we've done that inconsistently. It's a fair comment, and we'll strive to do better there in the context of the limitations of Prop 209, et cetera. We can't do boot camps and a whole variety of other ways for people who want to do business with the district. That's a excellent point, and we can have further discussion with the board on that. On the KPIs, they're mostly set up as relates to our strategic plan for the district, and so we could look at those, extract the ones that are most salient that the board would like to look at on a regular basis, and set some targets and goals, in addition to some divisional targets and goals, if you will. And on the last piece on equity, we will fold that into our normal course of business. We are working through that process now with our racial equity activities and our framework for racial equity and social justice. But I do believe, as you, that it should be embedded into our normal practice, and it will. So thank you for those comments. Should I move on, Madam Chair?
I just have one comment, Chancellor, and I also wanted to ask Dr. Brown if he wanted to make a comment. My one comment is I want to thank you for mentioning Cranium Cafe, and I want to give a big shout out to all of our counseling faculty and our classified staff, and Dr. Corner. As you know, when we went to this remote environment, counselors and classified staff had to really adapt quickly to using Cranium Cafe to serve our students, both with counseling and other student services. And I fortunately got an amazing presentation yesterday in my role at Glendale College from two counselors at LA City College. We recently acquired a dean. We seem to trade faculty and administrators amongst all of the community colleges in the region, right. Who brought in two counselors from LA City College to give us a demonstration on how students are being served at City with Cranium and Connect Ed. So I was very impressed, and I want to thank you for mentioning that in your report as you were going through, because our students obviously are our number one priority and need to be served. And it gave me great happiness to see that they're being served really well with that program. And thank you, Dr. Corner. I know you're out there in this virtual land listening in, and I know you're going to present to us later today, but I just wanted to express my appreciation. Dr. Brown, did you have any comments on the first part of the presentation at this point?
No, I do not. I think this was very well laid out. And Chancellor, I do support the suggestion that this document would be made even more useful if you could integrate some type of benchmark or scoring. So, and that way I think it would cross-relate very well with the overarching goal grid. And that will give the board an opportunity to really understand how things are moving, because there's a lot of moving targets.
Yes.
I would just say to the new trustee, Henderson, I'm probably as overwhelmed as you are in terms of the sheer volume and scope of activity that occurs within the district. But this is an excellent summary of all the major activities.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Dr. Brown. Well, let's continue then. Now let's go into the second phase. And this is really with the support of ACCT and Dr. Brown, we organized, if you recall, colleagues, members of the board, when we were at LA Valley College, it was the left side of the grid, if you will, that derived from all that board work and the days that we could actually get around a table and talk and spend a day with each other on that retreat in that beautiful FRC at Valley College. So that was really, and those were codified into issue areas, and then ultimately into 4 broad goals of ensuring district sustainability, of addressing student basic needs, creating greater equity and inclusion. And as was mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, we added a 4th of COVID. We did not anticipate that, obviously, in fall of 2019. So moving forward, I'm going to pick out just a few. I'm not going to read every line, but I'm going to pick out just a few and then give an opportunity for the board to engage in any further questions. The way this is set up again is you have your board goals, and then on the right-hand side, some of the key action steps, actions that we took in very brief, sort of pithy language, and then whether or not we believed my assessment as to whether those goals were completed, whether they remain in progress or not completed. And I'll be very clear, but we did not complete the goal. And then we followed the board priority, which was high, medium, and low. And I don't think there are any low priorities, but most of them were high priority and medium. And so with that, let me go ahead and begin with this first strategic priority that was described broadly and encompassed by the notion of ensuring a district sustainability. And the first part, as you see there in issue 1, was, as the board put, right sizing the colleges, ensuring that the colleges have the kind of support that they need for the constituents that they are charged to serve. So our finance team here at the district office meets regularly with the college administration, the presidents, the vice presidents of administrative services and their teams to ensure that on a quarterly basis that they got the kind of support, the tools, and then the kind of information data that they need to make good decisions as they move forward to maintain their fiscal health at the colleges. So if there are problems, they're identified. If there are projected deficits, they're identified so that the adjustments can be made by year's end. There was also a very high interest on the board to talk and support LA Southwest College because of some of the enrollment declines that had occurred there over time. So we did do that. We contracted Cambridge West to assist us. And in this box here that you see under 1B that is highlighted, if you will, or linked, hyperlinked, you can see the full report. But essentially the report gives a full assessment of the college around its enrollments, its staffing, its academic programs, and then lays out some very clear recommendations that Dr. Wan and her great team out there are now implementing. So we're now I've identified some of the structural areas, structural deficits, and areas that could stand to be strengthened out at Southwest College. There is some additional support out to Southwest College as well by way of additional team support, if you will, for the president and for the others who are doing the good and excellent work out at Southwest College. But it is an attachment 6 that begins on page 62 if you want to see the full report that we put together. There is a template for a work plan at Southwest College that they are following and they're making over time will make good results. So that's item 1, right sizing the colleges, and we will review those as both completed but ongoing with respect to the next phase, but completed for at least getting those started for the first. On item 2, our district and campus foundations, the board asked us to ensure that all the foundations at each of the colleges, that they were compliant, that they were up to speed, that they were clear in their goals, aspirations, and sort of language. And we have indeed cleaned that up. At this next meeting, you will see a series of MOUs from between the College Foundation that are indeed in compliance with laws and whatever regulations govern them. So we have done those assessments as well. And then we have engaged with some additional technical support to review our grants process at each of the colleges to ensure that there aren't any grants that have problems with reporting, problems with segregation of duties, problems with the kinds of things that, if not done well, can be problematic. So we have done that assessment for all 9 colleges and have that and are implementing the recommendations of that. As it relates to the District Educational Center, the board asked us to think about, it's a medium priority, to think about whether or not this office, the one that I'm in today, could be actually, this 7th and Flower and Wilshire facility could be an asset for future use of the district. We do own this building, so we've done some preliminary feasibility studies with the work of Dr. Smith and his team. We've not yet crafted, posted an RFQ about what might be some potential uses. We've not determined or made a presentation to the board as to what we believe could be some viable options. But we have indeed looked at identifying some potential public and private partners that could assist us with that. So again, these are works that are in progress. It was a medium goal, and we'll continue to leverage this facility if indeed it's something that we can for the future, or stay in downtown and create the kind of environment here that would be useful to the rest of the district. Next, please. We've got 7 issue areas. Those are the, let me see if I can pick off, let me just jump to 5, and that's the land acquisition piece, if I could do that next. Let me see, okay, this begins on 5B, identify potential revenue streams. There is a letter from Dr. Smith as an update on the 10100 Jefferson property that is co-located at the West Los Angeles College campus. We have been engaged in a process to look at potential private public partnerships at 10100 Jefferson. That is the update that is there. So that is indeed in progress. The facilities committee is providing excellent guidance to that particular subject, and to see whether the property that's there could be indeed used for potential revenue to the district in the future, or the kind of partnership that would supplement and complement the activities that are now at the college itself. On 5C, that's a hyperlink. There's a letter there also that talks about our interest in looking and exploring a partnership with LA County. And this is a student housing project that would be adjacent to, across the street from LA Mission College. We've got some property across the street, and we've been engaged in discussions with LA County, and the college has gone through its B21 process. That's code for all the necessary due diligence and discipline that's involved with exploration of using our campus property for uses other than classroom education and other sorts of things. And Dr. Perez and his team have done an excellent job in putting that together. Dr. Smith and his team and others, of course, have our attorneys looking at it as well, so that we can ensure that if we are positioned for a public-private partnership that includes student housing that would help our students and others who are low income, it is something that we're going to look at. So that is in progress, and I expect us to make more progress on that discussion as we move forward. As it relates to, and that begins on, that's attachment 1 on page 20. Let me just talk about the teaching effectiveness. You've asked us to look at the areas of student persistence, completion of degrees, certificates, et cetera. And Mr. Vettis, this goes to some of your key performance indicators. These are generally the kinds of areas that we look at. The information is not always available on a month-to-month basis, as we have to wait for the collection of this particular data. So it's not quite as timely as perhaps some of the other data that could be timely. But if you would look at attachment 3, pages 22 and 23, we give a whole series of data related to AB 705, to our professional development that we are offering, the strengthening of the number of students that are taking particular classes, their performance in English and math, and so forth, their online education performance, those sorts of things. So I would draw your attention to those. And Dr. Corner is available after if you want to get into some level of detail on some of the trends that we are seeing there and whatnot. So that's a little bit about both 5 and 6 that was considered also a high priority, and number 7, to engage the board in its responsibilities as members of the board. One example of that is the attainment of Dr. Noah Brown, who is seen as one of the foremost experts in board development and trustee development, and of course is the president and CEO of the Association of Community College Trustees. So that's part of our engagement with Dr. Brown, is to have him assist us as a district in higher levels of performance, accountability, and clear delineation and understanding of roles and responsibilities with the board as a policy-making board and staff as the operations of the district. We have already contacted the accrediting commission, the ACCJC. Can you believe our last accreditation was in 2016, and now almost 5 years, and it'll be 7 years later, we'll have a full accreditation visit in spring of 2023. All 10 sites will be visited. Back in 2016, we had over 120 colleagues from around the state and the Pacific Islands visit us to do an on-site visit. That'll happen again. So this spring, we'll prepare the board for the responsibilities. And there are 4 essential areas or standards of the ACCJC. Standard that pertains to the board is standard 4, governance. So that is the area that, as it relates to this professional development, that we will pay most close attention to. And then finally, as the board goes through its annual organizational meeting next Wednesday, I will work with the board leadership team to get their ideas on reviewing our board committee structure and seeing what they have in mind related to how we're currently organized, our standing committees, our ad hoc committees, and other kinds of support. So we will begin that discussion. So those are indeed in progress, and glad to make some general comments after I finish here. So let's go on to the second goal now. Or excuse me, the second strategic priority. I want to get my nomenclature straight. The second strategic priority is addressing student basic needs. And this is where we have the most material, the most links, the most evidence, and the most progress the district has done. And you saw from the departmental updates, a tremendous amount of work. And this was the area that I was referring to earlier, Mr. Vela, when we were talking about how it is that we're addressing needs. You've asked us as high priorities to support students through addressing basic needs like transportation, housing referrals, availability of childcare, food insecurity, veteran support. And indeed, we've done that. If you look at the work that's been done here, attachment 3 and 4. Attachment 3 beginning on pages 24 and 25, and attachment 4 with pages 31 through 46 gives just rich detail about the work that we're doing with LA Metro for subsidized universal student passes. That is in progress. We're making good progress there, and of course, is a multi-agency discussion. So we are, and this would complement the LA City routes that are already free for our students. And so we're continuing to work on that. Our coordination with city and county agencies for housing and food referrals. I mentioned earlier that we have a tremendous support from the county through the Peer Navigator program, through our MOUs with LA Room and Board, our MOU with Shower of Hope, providing direct, in-time, real-time support to our students who are homeless at no cost to the district. And again, thanks to our corporate, philanthropic, and private partners and foundations of both the district and at ELAC that are helping us to subsidize those costs. We had an ad hoc committee earlier in the year with Mr. Sponkin and Mr. Moreno, in which we have laid out recommendations to support student veterans. That was facilitated by Dr. Corner, and we've implemented a good number of those recommendations to provide additional support to those students. So you can see in the item 8, I would commend the item to the resources that are available there, and it's our estimation that we've completed most of those and are indeed in progress. With respect to our student housing partnerships, item 9 that you have there, we are in progress with assessing whether or not student housing, the demand for it, the feasibility for it, would be something that the district could pursue. So that is something that we have that is in progress. If you look at 9C, that is once again the LA Mission College discussion with the LA County. That is attachment 2 on page 21. And then attachment 4 gives a lot of detail. That's pages 50 and attachment 5, pages 57 through 61. That talks about the tremendous amount of legislative bills that correspond to state, local, and national priorities that we've taken place. So in this particular case, our coordination, our identification, our crafting, if you will, has made good progress on these. What we did not complete on item 9B was an RFQ for student housing. We did not do that because that would follow the results of a feasibility study. So that's just a matter of timing. If indeed the demand and feasibility study dictate that there is a need for and that we can find a way to, in fact, to construct a student housing. So we did not complete that this year, and that will, I suspect, at the board's will and interest, be carried forward to next year. So that's strategic priority 2, addressing student basic needs. We move on now with strategic priority number 3, which is creating greater equity and inclusion. And Mr. Vettis, this goes to your point earlier about how we embed this work. And clearly, we've done quite a bit of work in this area. I'll just start with number 10. You've asked us through our student and community outreach focus to expand our LGBTQ outreach, African American outreach, these undocumented students, to the API community. And so we have done quite a bit of work, and an attachment 3, page 26, gives you some of that work in much greater detail, but it is a work in progress. The Chancellor's Advisory Committee for LGBTQ Affairs, chaired by Mr. Vela, recently passed an LGBTQIA plus a Bill of Rights, what I believe is a local, maybe even a national landmark for community colleges that really demonstrates the interests, the goals, the responsibilities, obligations, and the kind of climate that we want to support our students who are LGBTQ plus IA. I thank the board for recognizing these members a couple of months ago, and it is, I know, something we're going to continue to do. We have a roadmap for success in that particular Bill of Rights, and we'll continue to lean into the conversation there. So, Mr. Vela, thank you for your leadership on that tremendous group of individuals, energetic individuals, and really can put LACCD at the forefront of this. So thank you for that. We have begun the Chancellor's Advisory Committee for Black African American Student Affairs. I expect in the next month or two, where a series of recommendations to emerge from that group related to student success for our Black students, and looking forward to supporting, shepherding, organizing that as we move forward. We've had ongoing support for our undocumented students. Dr. Walnut chairs the DACA Immigration Task Force Committee, and we're thinking about renaming that committee next term to something that's a little bit broader, a little bit more inclusive, and whatnot. But we've had monthly meetings, and that committee began back in 2017, in which we continue to have tremendous support for our undocumented students. We have a really efficient and well-organized Dream Resource Center group that is made up of individuals from around the district at our college campuses who run our 9 Dream Resource Centers. They're very well organized. They're extremely professional and extremely talented in their responsibilities to support undocumented students. Again, another leading model that we have. We've shared our model with institutions around the state and around the country as to how we're engaged around student success. API Student Outreach, chaired by Mr. Fong. We're scheduling a meeting for Q1 of 2021. He has led that group with the tremendous support of Dr. Otto Lee and Dr. Alexis Montervirgen, and support of faculty and staff around the district. API data disaggregation was a key goal of ours when we first began, so we could really see what was going on. And in short, we were seeing that our Chinese, our Japanese, Korean students were actually doing pretty well with respect to that student equity gap that can exist with our students of color. Mr. Vet, as you pointed that out earlier. But then what we found out when we disaggregated was that our Hmong, Laotian, Samoan, Pacific Islander students, Tongan students were not doing as well. Our male students were at risk as much as our Black male and our brown male students with respect to student success. That's how we discovered that, and have since organized work around Pacific Islander student leadership development at LA Harbor College with Dr. Lee and his team, and some of our community partners that focus in on PI students. And so again, it just shows you how data can inform good decision making, then ultimately a good intervention for students who are PI. So, and others that are there. So again, I'll refer to the documents on attachment 3, so you can see much more detail on them. Those are hyperlinked for your convenience. I'll move on now to item 11, which is growing enrollment, and that I would draw your attention to attachment 3, which is on pages 27 through 29. It was considered a high priority for the district, and you asked us to improve better targeting, better financial aid, including Pell Grants, connectivity to workforce development, and the specific activities to craft specific outreach plans for adult learners, LA College Promise, online, adult education and on credit, to monitor our milestones on the 5-year strategic plan, to monitor our college enrollment management plans, and to engage in program viability studies. As you will see on those pages there, and we can elaborate if you'd like, 11A through 11F, but we did in fact complete. We expanded all of those enrollments in those areas. We did lose enrollment in this fall to a significant amount, but if you look at from 2019 through 2020 and even to this fall, we did in fact have some gains, but unfortunately those gains were not enough to supersede the losses that we had with adult learners, with non-credit students, with ESL and undocumented students, and some of the students who were not taking English and math. So we have some reasons for that, and again, we can get into that. So all have been completed, our estimation of that, and 11G is work in progress with our college program viability studies. And what that essentially means is, are there enough students? Is there enough student interest to sustain the viability of that program? We have a very well laid out program viability study and assessment that's done for programs in the district. It's a very methodical, data-driven process in which we've got many constituents involved to ensure that we're making good progress there. We move on now to the next goal and last one. Last strategic priority. Oh, this on this one. Yeah, let's go to this one here. And this is the last one, priority 4. And then I'd be happy to go back to any of the goal strategic priorities or respond to any of the goals areas that you'd like to. And this was the new one, and we talked about this already. Our priority 4, in which we simply had to respond to COVID, to racial equity, to social justice as a result of what has occurred during this COVID pandemic period. So the issue here is responding to this global health crisis, and so that we can convert our district operations to remote learning and remote learning environments. And don't lose sight of the numbers, please. We converted 10,000 sections of courses about that to online learning. We're about 20% were already online. We had to convert the rest. We're moved 10,000 employees to working from home, and then supported the education, 100,000 plus students for the spring and fall, spring, summer, and fall semester. So no small feat to plan for the wholesale shift. In doing so, we developed and coordinated our communication and safety protocols that you've seen. If you look at the one pager for the EOC, there are hyperlinks to all those protocols, to the recovery plans, to the safety advisories. We moved IT support, to be hyper-focused on supporting the teaching and learning of students and those who support our students, our faculty. We strengthened the infrastructure of IT, and of course, in doing so, by moving people off campus, except for our essential workers, that we've maintained the campus health and safety of our environment. So you can see there's evidence of that at the EOC one pager, and I would draw your attention to that. The last area is area 14, and this is the response to the civil unrest, to the cries for social justice, and to the remand for us to pay attention to equity around this country, and the cries for criminal justice reform. First and foremost, we created a framework for racial equity and social justice, something that was further codified through resolution by the Board of Trustees. We're very proud of that document. That document has been shared up and down the state and used as a model, and I'm sure that with also institutions out of state as well, to codify the 9 action steps around human resources, around the support for African-American students, support for student leadership development, teach-ins, educational programs, looking at our personnel practices, looking at our law enforcement practices, looking at ethnic studies. Those are all elements of this, and creation of the Chancellor's Advisory Committee that I referred to before. So you can see, and then continue to have opportunities for professional growth and development. And our colleges have done a fabulous job in organizing, inviting speakers, and coming forth with solutions for our personal growth and development around the issues of racial equity, racism, becoming an anti-racist organization, becoming resilient in this space. And this is something that's not a fad, it's not a moment. Indeed, it is a movement towards greater equity and social justice. So, and then of course you've got the areas there that we believe are completed or in progress as we're moving forward. So, Madam Chair, I believe that concludes my report. And I would propose now, if you'd like to take a short recess, and then we can come back and then finish the balance of the new hour on any questions, insights that the board might have, further clarifications. My team is here, we're ready. And then we'll get to the last part of this retreat, in which Dr. Brown will talk to us about our next steps and what we do moving forward. So, Madam Chair, back to you.
Thank you so much, Chancellor. That was an excellent presentation. I think we'd like to have a robust discussion. I know we're scheduled until noon. So why don't we take a 5-minute break, grab a cup of coffee, and tune back in 5 minutes. So roughly at 10:55, 10:56.
Madam Chair, are we breaking for lunch too?
Yeah, we will be breaking for lunch at 12 o'clock.
And for how long would that be?
A half an hour from 12 to 12:30.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you in 5-6 minutes. All right, Chancellor, I see you're back. Are my colleagues back? Can I get a thumbs up if you're back in the meeting?
I'm here.
Great. Okay, great. I think we can get started then. Thank you, Chancellor, for that very complete presentation. Lupe, can you or Crystal stop screen sharing? Thank you. Thanks. Great. I'm going to now ask for my colleagues to make comments or ask questions. And I will start with you, Dr. Buelna.
None.
Okay. Student Trustee Geronimo, are you still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Did you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I have a question in reference to the previous presentation. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
That's what we're talking. That's what we're.
Hi, good morning, Chancellor.
Hi, good morning.
So my question is in regards to you mentioned about the state budget allocation, about 10 million in ongoing funding to the 5.8 ongoing funding to the support to support the Dream Resource Lesson Center. And I would like to know if this is the only source of funding that the Dream Resource Center will get, or is there any other source of funding?
Okay.
And is
Yes, thank you.
It is yearly or? Yeah.
That's not the only support. That was a statewide allocation through the budget that we helped to advocate for and to get in the state budget. That's distributed throughout the whole California community college system. In addition to that, our colleges and our district provides through the student equity funds, through other operational funds, additional support to our Dream Resource Center. So we're going to continue to advocate for more support. In fact, day before, we were on the line with a key assembly member from the Assembly Budget Committee, making the request for additional support for Dream Resource centers. And you know this well, Student Trustee Geronimo, our district serves more undocumented students than any other community college district in the country, and we serve more undocumented students than the entire UC and CSU combined. So we believe we have a numbers imperative and a strong case as to why, if they wanted to make the number less, even do a pilot at LACCD for best practices. As you know, the DRCs here are very well organized. We're part of statewide coalitions and they do excellent work. And I also wanted to just take a moment to thank you for facilitating multiple student town halls and where students can raise their voice, in which they could express their fears, their anxieties related to COVID, related to the community, related to transition to an online environment. And I wanted to simply recognize you for doing that with such an ethic of care, such fidelity, and such excellence. So, and I know you've been part of our panels when we've hosted Congresswoman Judy Chu, soon to be HHS Secretary Javier Becerra, and Lucille Roybal Allard. I mean, you've been part of those discussions, facilitating, leading, and I simply wanted to note you and your excellent work as student trustee.
Thank you, Johnson.
Trustee Fong, do you have any comments or questions on the last presentation?
Yes, thank you so much, Madam President. Just a couple quick comments. Thank you, Mr. Chancellor and the team for the robust presentation on enrollment, on the expanded college promise, expanded dual enrollment programs. And thank you to my colleagues on the board for all your leadership and support on those initiatives as well. I think with adult education, in partnership with LUSD as well, there's different opportunities there. We can look at expanding collaboration and opportunities with LAREC. And then lastly, with Metro, thank you, Mr. Vela and board for all their leadership and efforts on moving the transportation piece. I think that's something that we can get a win, hopefully in the first part of 2021. I think there's a lot of movement there, as you referenced, Mr. Chancellor, to see how we can make this as an additional student support for our students as we come out of this COVID crisis. And any additional supports that we can provide for our students would be even more crucial than ever. So I'm glad that the conversations are happening with Move LA, with different stakeholder groups, with the student trustee and the advocacy groups as well. And so anything that we can do to push from those ends, please let me know. And look forward to building up more partnerships and CCAP agreements with our neighboring school districts on dual enrollment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fong. And as you know, you were very helpful in us in deriving the LA City Connect program, which will provide a pathway for LAC City students for city jobs, civil service jobs. So we're finalizing that now through an MOU, and we hope to announce that and have a ceremonial signing of that in the first quarter of 2021. So thank you for your leads there. And I know we were on a recent call with the Opportunity at Work about connecting philanthropic support to build students, to give them an opportunity to build their through internships, mentorships, resumes, so they can get these jobs while they're in college and get hired once they complete their education. So you've been a tremendous door opener, Mr. Fong, and we'll continue to walk through those and see if we can make a mutual partnership with some of these agencies. So thank you for that.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Mr. Chancellor. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Trustee Moreno.
No, I don't have any comments or questions.
And Trustee Henderson, do you have any questions, comments?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Vella.
No questions either. Thank you.
Vice President Veras.
Just a point of clarification. Are we just taking questions on these goals and then we're talking about others after?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, no questions on this part. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor. I actually just have one comment because I know that we're going to sort of fold into the next part, which is looking forward and ahead into 2021.
Yes.
And I just, we keep putting broadband, Wi-Fi, internet access into a goal around IT. I really want us to start to shift our thinking and make sure that we're putting the broadband access and the Wi-Fi under student basic needs, because more and more it's becoming an absolute necessity. And, I know a lot of legislators out there are saying Wi-Fi should flow like water. But if we are going to be successful and we're going to start to look forward to 2021 and setting our priorities and our goals, there's no reason why this can't be, cross-referenced. It could be an IT goal, it could be a legislative goal, but it really needs to fall under student basic needs. And that would just be my only comment. I think that we've made great progress. We set these goals before the global pandemic, and Chancellor, you and your staff have done an excellent job in not only meeting these goals, but pivoting and adding the extra strategic priority under COVID-19. So thank you for that. I'm now going to turn it over to
Trustee Hoffman.
Yes.
Can I have a quick? I wanted to ditto that. There has been data and reporting that the hotspot Wi-Fi component for students has added to enrollment in K-12, we can talk about how that's funded, but there are a lot of opportunities to fund that. And I don't believe, and heading the IT committee for the board, that we've made the mental switch to understanding that the Wi-Fi that's occurring physically, in the absence of it occurring at home or having access, is having a material direct effect on enrollment and learning. And that might to some people seem simple, but I think it's a concept that most in higher education, especially when it comes to families in need, is not something that it's not a want, it's a need. So I'm thank you for mentioning that, because that seemingly little switch could really focus us on how we perceive it and a goal on how we fund it. And again, just to be clear, just like we wouldn't, we're focused on water and having safety, that component. And once we go back physically live, we're still going to need to fully understand what that nexus is between the hotspot at home and that learning. So I just wanted to add on to that, because I had not caught that, Trustee Hoffman, and making that switch. But as we're doing enrollment discussions, some of this stuff traditionally, because I do believe, just like, for instance, in talking about COVID, how when there's an event, it takes 2 weeks to figure out, what's occurring. A lot of times in policy, just like in, military discussions, generals and leadership and education, it may take a few years to figure out what's happening on the ground. And my fear is, while we've made that switch, I'm not sure we've made that switch in understanding how the entirety of the district depends on what Trustee Hoffman just said. That's it.
President Hoffman, really quick.
Yes, Trustee Vela.
So absolutely agree with Trustee Webb. And I think that I actually want to commend the district for stepping up. I mean, you have the foundation. You continue to have Trustee Wella and the IT committee. You also have our department, our IT department, work together with what we're doing in the Legislative and Public Affairs Committee to really kind of bridge the gap. Although this is at the micro level, I really do believe we have to look at this at the macro level. And what's interesting is, how are we going to leverage, and I mentioned it earlier, our place, and affect policy and influence policy in order to have all of our students be able to connect to our courses. And I think that it goes beyond this pandemic. I think that this is going to be the future. People are getting used to working from home, but coming from somebody who I grew up, very poor, and $45 to $95 a month for internet service in a house with limited coverage. More and more communities of color are having this digital divide issue. This Monday, and thank you, President Hoffman, I represent the Board of Trustees in the LA County Trustees Association, and tomorrow's general meeting at 5 p.m. Blackstuff, we will be discussing this very topic with Vice Chancellor Carmen Litz, as well as folks from the K-12 community, to bridge that gap, because I completely agree with Trustee Buena. I do believe that our enrollment is very tied to the access to the internet and to Wi-Fi, and it comes in many different forms and shapes. But even at the level where we get the hotspots, where we're able to step in, it's also a macro issue where we've really got to leverage and influence, utility companies, the state legislature, even the federal government, to provide this, like, we provide electricity, like we provide water, and, we really have to be part of that conversation. And I look forward to that conversation. I think Trustee Vettis as well and I have spoken about at length about how this relates to our facilities. And, I'm glad to see the district moving forward and providing at our parking lots Wi-Fi in spring. It's just what we need to do. So I just wanted to, kind of put this in a more macro and global perspective. And, I'm glad and I'm proud that we're part of that conversation as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Vela. And the LACSA meeting, I believe, is Monday, 5 p.m. It's an open meeting. Email Trustee Vela.
Did I say it was tomorrow? I apologize.
It's okay. We can send you the information if you're interested.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
I am now going to turn it over. We have 45 minutes. I'm going to
Madam Chair, can I follow up on Trustee Vela's comments?
Sure, Trustee Moreno, go ahead.
I couldn't agree with him more. I forgot about the fee that he mentioned, but What I am troubled by is the fact that we do have a decline in enrollment in these, specifically these minority areas. And having been president for many years and having watched our students really walk away when we put hurdles in front of them, these are very vulnerable young people. And they are not always prepared when they come out of school, high school especially, with a failure rate as it is, to take on the responsibility of enrolling online. It may sound kind of ridiculous, but it's true. That in addition to the struggles they have in accessing online enrollment, it's also an additional struggle to enroll in our district. If one has ever attempted to enroll in one of our classes, aside from the extraordinary amount of work you have to put in providing information, what's also true is the technology required to do that is such that many people, I believe, are turned off or turned away, especially young men who are not always in tune with that new technology, especially when they come from areas, as Trustee Vela mentioned, where you have little access. I think it's important to review from a student's perspective on what hurdles we put in front of them. We may very well be a hurdle and not know it. And we could identify ourselves and lump ourselves into what apparently is a declining enrollment nationwide. However, on a local level, it seems to me that we want to make sure that we can take these barriers away so that we're certain that the impact is one that we can attribute to some other cause. I honestly feel that we have set in motion by virtue of our, all the IT problems we've had, that we may very well put, you have to try it yourself, folks. Try to enroll and imagine yourself as an individual who has no knowledge of the system and what you're required to read and what you're required to press and where you're due next. And I can tell you right now, I've had horror stories from very many people who have indicated that it's finding impossible to get on enrolled in our system without having jumped to a variety of hoops. So I would ask that first we deal with our own inadequacies before we make more generalized statements of the condition of us all. I would ask that we do that, I think, expeditiously and correct it, not just look at it, but correct it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee
Thank you,
Mark.
Ms. O'Donnell.
I'm now going to hand it over to Dr. Noah Brown to lead us for the next 45 minutes or so.
Thank you, President Hoffman. By the way, it's just Mr. Brown. That's okay.
That's what I thought, but then the chancellor started with the doctor stuff, so.
Yeah, well, I assume the honorary doctorate's in the mail, so thank you for that. Just if I might make a comment, President Hoffman, on the discussion that just concluded. I agree 100%. I think what we're learning about the pandemic and enrollment trends, particularly among certain student populations, is that broadband and Wi-Fi, as President Hoffman says, really should be thought of in the broader context of student access and the ability to serve a wider array of students. I was just sharing with President Hoffman that all of your colleagues around the country are having this very same conversation. So I would commend this conversation as a future cited forward-looking issue for the district. I've even understood that some of the colleges are in conversation with their local municipalities. It turns out in many municipalities, if you didn't know this, traffic light intersections that are controlled for traffic flow are controlled through Wi-Fi technology. And it turns out that some of those intersections, depending on where they're located, could be turned into Wi-Fi hotspots. So that might be something, Chancellor, you might talk to your the city of Los Angeles to see if that's actually true, and whether some of that might be able to be used to expand the access, particularly in certain neighborhoods if they're in close proximity to some of these traffic light intersections. And my few trips in and out of LA suggest that you have many, many, many traffic light intersections. So just a thought, something I've been hearing that I thought was very interesting and certainly never occurred to me. With that, President Hoffman, I don't think I'm going to consume 45 minutes. I certainly hope not. What I was going to do at this point is, in terms of the contract that you have with ACCT, there are two additional deliverables that you have contracted with us to provide. Obviously, the big one has been this whole development of your strategic plan, the grid as the chancellor went through it, the ability to integrate some kind of a benchmarking and scoring system so the board could more readily assess progress on what's being achieved, but more importantly, if there are things that aren't being achieved, why aren't they being achieved? And what can the board do to assist in facilitating progress in those areas? The next two items, as I mentioned at the onset, is the board self-evaluation. And part of the reason, as I've had many conversations with President Hoffman and the Chancellor, and actually I think beginning with you, Trustee Fong, when you were board president, was to have a system, a more systematic approach that would allow the board to see and experience the progress being made on various goals and procedures, so that when the board does a self-assessment, a self-evaluation, it can more readily understand how not only the board is functioning as a cohesive body, moving in the same direction, but how the board is moving along and progressing with respect to the goals. So I had a conversation with President Hoffman and the Chancellor earlier this week. And our next assignment at the conclusion of this retreat is to begin to design an instrument based on the board goals grid, which now, as the Chancellor outlined, contains 4 major buckets because you had to add pandemic, civil unrest, and others, is to turn that into an instrument and provide that back to the board for each of the board members to assess how they're feeling with respect to the progress that has been made and the movement on those goals and how well this process has been proceeding. This will be in the form of similar board self-assessments that you've seen before. It'll take the form of a survey monkey, and so we will convert the grid into a series of questions and sub-questions in which you will have the ability to assess where you feel the board is on that continuum. And those then will be obviously collected as we do into numerics, and then will be given back to the board as a summary of numerics of how all the ratings fell. The survey will include, for every single question, the opportunity for comments. If individual trustees wish to make a comment or expand or explain maybe why they rated things in a certain way. And then very important for you, Trustee Henderson, because you're just getting dropped into this toward the end, don't panic. We recognize that you may not yet be in a position or certainly may not be comfortable yet in rating all these various pieces. So every question will also have the opportunity for you or any trustee for that matter to indicate if you're not comfortable rating a particular item or you don't feel that you have sufficient information. And with respect to the latter, as I explained to President Hoffman and Chancellor, To the extent that any board member indicates that they don't feel comfortable or they don't feel they had sufficient information, that's important. It's important to capture that, document it, because that means there are areas that will require additional work going forward. Because every trustee should feel reasonably comfortable and informed in order to make that assessment. So as I understand this, we're going to get to work very quickly on creating that instrument and getting it out to the board with an eye toward getting those results back to you. I think President Hoffman, as we agreed, very quickly after the new year, as soon as we can. And so I would ask, the indulgence of the board when you get that, complete that as quickly as you can and get it back. We'll make it as simple as possible that you can complete this online. I don't think it should take an inordinate amount of time. Once that's done and back, we will provide the summary results back to the board. And the board can have the opportunity to review that, discuss it. My suggestion was, to the extent there are items there that need further work, that that be considered part of the work that the board would look at going forward into the new year. And those areas should require some special emphasis if there are board members who believe that they still need more information or they're still unclear about where the district is on some of those priorities. The board self-evaluation is critically important because the next thing that would occur, and the final piece that we're contracted currently to provide, is to assist the board with the evaluation of the chancellor. So it's very important that we understand where the board feels it is with respect to its goals and its progress, so that we then can build an instrument that allows you to specifically rate the chancellor on all of those items he essentially reviewed with you today, and for which there's greater detail covered in the 52 pages or so that were shared. That again will be a Survey Monkey instrument, which will allow you to rate along all those items along a continuum. Those will be scored and weighted, and you'll get the results of that to see how the chancellor is faring across each of those items. We usually use a 5-point system there, everything from did not meet expectations all the way up to exceeds expectations. And again, it will include areas where trustees can include individual comments and or indicate on any item, again, if they don't feel sufficiently prepared or informed to make a judgment. Once that's done, we will give that back. And my recommendation was that be reviewed by your executive committee, that is your officers, to see how those ratings fall and whether or not, in the board's estimation, the chancellor has, at a minimum, met expectations. I think your goal is, at a minimum, to meet expectations across a continuum. Obviously, there'll be areas where you might note there might be more improvement needed, but improvement is occurring. Or there may be areas where you feel the chancellor has met, or in some cases exceeded, your expectations. Of course, this is a very different year than normal because, in addition to the regular goals, we have the pandemic and the fact that the district had to segue very quickly along a spectrum of issues and make adjustments. So that would be reflected also in the chancellor self-evaluation. We are committed to provide that as quickly after we've concluded the board self-evaluation back to the board, so that the board can do whatever it needs to do with respect to reviewing, finalizing, filing, and making determinations with respect to the chancellor and contract. So let me stop there, President Hoffman, if there are questions, concerns. But that is the assignment, as I understand it, that we have been given for the next two components, which we are committed to provide as quickly in the new year as is possible. And we can do that with your help and your diligence to complete those instruments as quickly as possible.
Thank you so much, Noah. What I'm going to do now then is ask my colleagues if they have questions or concerns. And I'm actually going to start with you, Trustee Henderson, because I imagine you may have a few questions and I want to make sure you have ample time to get your questions answered. So please.
I have questions, and if it makes sense at all, I'd like to kind of ask them later.
Sure. And if you want, Noah, you can share your phone number with Trustee Henderson, and Chancellor, I know you're always available, and that's fine. And if you want to email or reach out by telephone, that's fine too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would, Trustee Henderson, I would welcome that. I know this is new and different, but let me just assure you, this is not unique. This is the way many boards conduct their affairs in terms of their own evaluation and the evaluation then of their president and chancellor. And we do this and have done it many, many times, including for this board. But I'm happy if you'd like to reach out. And I also have a colleague, as the Chancellor and President Hoffman know, Colleen Allen, who directs our evaluation services. And we'd be happy to connect you with her as well and talk through any questions or concerns you have. Our goal here is to do what you all need us to do on your behalf, so you get to a great result that's informative for the board and also helps you do the kind of evaluation that you want to do relative to your chancellor.
Thank you. I see our student trustee looks eager to ask a question, and I'm really honored that you were able to be here today. So did you have a question for Noah Brown or for the chancellor or for myself?
No, I don't have a question. I'm here. I'm also learning, but I hope to do the right things when it comes to doing what we have to do now. And yeah, but I don't have any questions regarding to that. Thank you.
Okay. And Noah, there's an opportunity for Elias to weigh in on progress toward the goals, correct? And the board self-evaluation. I don't know that we've included a student before, but I would like to make sure that we're able to.
That is entirely up to you. We work for you. So if that's something that you want to integrate, we would have no issue with that.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Welna?
And I apologize. What was your
Just
question?
if you have any questions going forward for Noah or for the chancellor on the process. No? Okay. Trustee Fong?
Thank you so much, Madam President, and thank you, Mr. Brown, for a robust presentation, and thank you so much, Mr. Chancellor, for the wonderful presentation this morning as well. I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Trustee Moreno?
No questions.
Okay. Trustee Vela?
No questions.
Trustee Veras?
Just a quick clarification, because I know as we do goals and objectives, and we're in open session here, there's also a sort of tie-in connection to an employment contract. How are we? Can you lay out for us the proposed process to deal with that, which I believe needs to be in closed session, and the component that needs to be in public session, especially since I guess there's about 100 of us, almost 100 of us, sort of online listening. I think it would be great to understand why it belongs in closed, what belongs in closed, as opposed to what we just went over here together in public.
Steve, is that a question for me or for the President Hoffman, or maybe,
we also have legal counsel.
maybe your counsel?
Probably
Yeah.
to because
I could speak generally to a process, but I wouldn't want to overstep my bounds with respect to the district process.
Yeah, Mr. Prieto, can you step in?
If I could
Sure.
just,
Yes, sir, Chancellor. And I'm sorry for the visual quality of my, but I'll keep it very high level as VP Vettis has asked. So there is a distinction, obviously. The Chancellor's evaluation discussions about the Chancellor's contract are matters that are part of closed session. While this actually, in this particular process, leads to that, once there are the specific discussions relative to the Chancellor himself, those will be in closed sessions. And we always do try to find a balance. Those are appropriate closed session items and not public session. I would say, and we will work with Mr. Brown and the student trustee. Generally, the student trustee is not involved in the evaluation process of employees. So we will find the balance in terms of being able to provide just some comments in terms of the board aspect, but not necessarily as it relates to the Chancellor's evaluation.
Mr. Prieto, I wasn't suggesting that the student.
Oh, I know, Madam President. I know you weren't. I just wanted to clarify that. And I think what you were saying is that the student trustee can be involved in the board evaluation aspect. And that's absolutely
our
correct.
self-evaluation, because he is
Exactly. And I think it is wonderful that the student trustee is part of that particular evaluation. But there is the distinction when it leads to obviously the Chancellor's evaluation, and obviously any contractual discussions are all done in closed session.
Of course. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you for the question, Trustee Veras. Did you have any other questions or comments? So when we come back together, we will come back together in public for the board self-evaluation and those sort of findings and results, correct? Whoever wants to answer that?
Yeah, yes, Madam President. Yeah, that's a public meeting.
Okay, great. All right.
And then as well as when the board forwards its 2021 goals as well.
Right, and I'm hoping from our self-evaluation, you know, in terms of what goals we've met, what goals are still in progress, and what goals maybe need to be sort of revised, that we can incorporate that into our goal setting meeting for 2020, 2021. Okay. Thank you.
President Hoffman, if I might just, for Trustee Henderson's benefit, and I know the rest of the board knows this already, but as your contractor, as it were, any work that we do for you is legally a work for hire. And with respect to a chancellor evaluation, it's a confidential document. So we respect all confidentiality and of course adhere to any applicable state laws with respect to employment and all of that. That's why we do not, when we do any evaluation, for example, we give you the results. We don't necessarily interpret the results or provide advice to you specifically unless so requested. So I just want you to be clear on that.
Thank you. Chancellor, thank you for the wonderful presentation and for getting the documents in a timely manner so we all had time to read them and review them. Do you want to close us out with some final remarks?
Well, yes, thanks so much to members of the board for being with us the last 2.5 hours for this phase of the discussion. I hope you see that in the body of work that was presented, that there's evidence of your work, your touch, your leadership, and your impetus for us to keep serving our students of the Los Angeles Community College District. I want to thank our college presidents, the executive team for their continued work in areas that where we hit the mark and areas that where we still need to improve. Clearly, there are some of those areas we're candid and very transparent about that, but in the areas that we did meet the goals that we set for the last year plus, I want to thank our executive team and presidents and others, our labor partners, our professional classified staff, our deans, others were all involved with this. So I wanted to end with that and then give a special note. If you like the way the board document looked, let me thank Crystal and Maria Veloz for putting that together in a way that was readable, presentable, and flowed very, very well. So let me thank them too. And of course, Lupe for always being the backbone to make sure everything works. So this is the first phase that we're concluding of 3 that we have today. The next session will be open. I expect, Madam Chair, that we'll reconvene at 12:30. You'll give the order for that and note for that, and then we'll reconvene in closed session after following that meeting. So board members, thank you very much for your time and your attention this morning. And
Thank you,
Dr. Brown as
Chancellor.
well, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Chancellor. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you, colleagues. I think this is the first. Not only did I aim to finish on time, but we finished early. So take a break. Please be prompt. We are going to recess now for a break, but we're going to reconvene at 12:30 to do some business in open session. Thank you, everybody.
I just want to wish everyone on the board a happy holidays and continue to be safe, and we'll see you in the new year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to you. All right.
Thank you.
You know,
Thanks. Chancellor, do we leave this? Do we leave this meeting or do we leave it on? You're muted.
no, this is the link that we're on. So
Okay, so we can just hide our
stay
camera.
on and we'll ask our colleagues that are visiting with us that will be essentially offline for a board recess until 12:30.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.